So today I want to talk a little bit about something that's very important in the field of fitness performance, athletic performance, and return to play. Because at the end of the day, what we're after are good, efficient movers. That's what we want. That's what defines a good athlete. That's what defines a successful return to play protocol. I want to talk about what I believe are the 4 optimal qualities of human performance. And I want to do it very simply because I'm kind of a simple person. I want to try to get this across in a very coherent way. So let's start with the first component. And the first component is good tissue quality. Now, that's very, very important. And I think sometimes it's overlooked because we overlook restoration protocols. We don't remember that training breaks the body down, and it's that restoration period and what we do during that restoration period that actually is going to help restore and rebuild good tissue quality. Now, in terms of a definition, tissue quality refers to the health, resilience, mobility, and functional condition of muscles, tendons, ligaments, fascia, and other soft tissues. When you have high quality tissue, you're going to be able to tolerate more stress, more load. You're also going to be able to recover faster. This is normally the domain, when an individual's injured, of a medical therapist or a doctor, because they're so concerned with the medical clearance of that individual, as they should be. And that should drive the ship in any return to play. But tissue quality has a direct effect on optimal human performance, and it requires considering a number of restoration agents. That's quality number 1. Now, good tissue quality in turn is going to enhance and support the second quality, which is to build or restore the biomotor abilities. Now, biomotor abilities are simply qualities or expressions of things like strength, speed, power, endurance, agility, coordination. All of these are biomotor ability capacities. And in our educational process, we're very good in this domain. We can build strength. We can enhance speed. We can improve coordination. And that's a very good thing. But it's not the end game, because what we have to remember is that biomotor abilities are expressions. They're qualities. They're just capacities that can sit inert if they're not applied through quality number 3, which is skill mastery. Now, I want to say this right up front, that this is an area we're not real good at, and that is teaching good biomechanical and efficient skill mastery to our clients or athletes. And the reason is we don't have a good educational process. Now, in the Aruka world, we distill this down to 31 major skills, and they fall into different categories. There's stability skills, there's locomotor skills, there's force absorption skills, there's fitness skills. And these are just the fundamentals. When you incorporate the sport skills that are specific to a specific sport, then you can see how many skills actually exist. But what we need to remember is this: anything that we see is always the skill. The biomotor ability is just it's the driver, the output engine that allows us to perform a particular skill to a high degree and to an optimal degree based on what we need to do within our position or sport. So it becomes very, very important. And as I said, we have a very poor educational process. And I want to give you an example. I was at a major university doing some consulting not long ago, and we had a human performance staff from a particular sport, and everybody was in there, and I threw a couple of skills out, like I want somebody to come up here and teach us how to cut with concise language and good biomechanical marker expression. And nobody was willing to do that. So cutting is one of these 31 skills. So that's an example, and it's nobody's fault. I'm not, trying to throw cold water on somebody by saying that. What I'm trying to do is get across the point that we need to improve our educational process and enable our coaches to teach these skills that are very important. Because if we don't teach the athlete to be biomechanically correct in their skill expression, they're going to have energy leaks, they're going to be more susceptible to injury, and they're going to have suboptimal performance when they are healthy. So it's very, very important, and it's often overlooked. And the last thing I want to say about that is a lot of times in the return to play programming, we just assume skills are going to automatically return. That's not true. It's just an error in our judgment. We think that once the tissue quality is back and once they've met certain biomotor ability assessments and output engines that we create, which are very good, that skill is just automatically going to manifest itself. Well, that's certainly not true, and I think you would agree with the logic of that. So skill integrity, if it's incomplete, you're going to have problems. Now, the fourth area is one maybe you've never heard of, and I call that area movement neurogenics. Movement neurogenics are simply cognitive adaptations based on initiations or reactions to movement and environmental variables. Now, let me give you an example. There's a neurogenic skill, and we have 20 neurogenic skills in our Aruka framework and ways to assess those skills. But one of those skills is adaptability. So let's take the sport of golf. And let's use golf as an example of how this occurs in real-world conditions. Well, on a calm day, normally that golfer's going to select a club. He's going to use his or her expertise. They're going to execute the swing, and they're going to expect a predictable outcome. That's the way it works. But let's say you have a steady rain. Then that golfer is going to have to consider his grip or her grip, their stance, how they make contact. It could change. And then you add another variable, like a 25, 30 mile an hour wind, then you really got issues. Because then it's all about, do I use the same club? How's my swing path? What's my trajectory on this shot's going to be? That golfer has to apply the neurogenic skill of adaptability to that given situation. And the elite golfers learn to do that. They learn to do that through experience and through practice and through just playing the game. The point is this. The swing of that golf club, it has not changed in definition. But in execution, that execution of how you swing that club, what club you select, that definitely does change. And as I mentioned, we think there are at least 20 neurogenic skills that need to be incorporated into human performance, because that is how we live. That's how we operate. That's how we play. And there are things like perception. There are things like sports vision. There are things like anticipation, rapid processing of information, working memory. All these are very, very important neurogenic skills when you apply them in the world of sport, recreation, or even fitness. And it's a very, very overlooked area. And believe me, I've researched this and I've compiled tons of research. And we're at an early stage in terms of studying how movement affects neurogenesis and neuroplasticity of the brain. But there's some very, very promising things that are showing up in the literature. And so as you move forward and you consider, okay, the four major qualities: good tissue quality, well-built biomotor ability, availability, skill mastery, and movement neurogenics, you kind of put together a complete picture of what it takes to perform optimally in any sport, in any physical endeavor. And if we leave just one of those components out, we're doing our athletes an injustice. And certainly in return to play programming, that particular program or protocol is going to be incomplete. So I would encourage you to consider this movement neurogenic paradigm as you train your athletes or you train your clients if you're a physical therapist, because they don't have to be athletes. What you want to restore is efficient movement, coordinated movement. That really defines an athlete's movement bank, whether they're quality or not, or even a client. It's not what we know, it's what we can do with what we know that is important when we talk about physical development. So the key thing to remember is all these things blend together. And the last thing I want to point to is there's an order to consider. Good tissue quality supports ability. Ability is going to enhance skill, and skill is going to show up better in real time when we've combined both cognitive and physical movement, the brain-body experience with the body-brain loop, and closed that. We're going to have better movers, we're going to have better athletes, and we're going to be more efficient. And that's the human paradigm. So I hope this makes sense. I hope it's concise, and we look forward to being with you next time here at Aruka.